Good evening and welcome. Tonight I will be reading to you this article out of History magazine called The Great Inventions of the Islamic World. And this article was chosen by my channel members. This is actually when I got this new issue, this was not the article I had planned to read out of it, but the channel members overwhelmingly voted for this article. So here we are. I think it's the most votes any History magazine article has ever received. This article was chosen by Marta, All the Happy Squirrels, Amina, Liz, Pill, OK Commuter, Craig, Lucas, Victoria, M. Rosalie, Star Dresser 1, and Mesna. Thank you all so much for picking this fantastic article. And if you watching this would like to have your name in a History magazine articles because you got to pick which article I read, you can click the join button right down there or the very first link in the description box down below to become a channel member. It is only 99 cents a month. And you get all kinds of perks, including getting to watch all my videos early. I have a little behind the scenes vlog type video I have that I'm working on right now for the channel members to see some adventures we had. You get your name in every video and History magazine articles that you guys get to pick. So if you would like to participate in that, I'd love to have you. I'd love to see you become a channel member and join the crew. We're at almost 200 channel members, by the way. You might be lucky 200 if you join now. But let's get started with the article and learn about the Golden Age of Islam and all of the inventions that came out of it. And sorry for this glare. It's very glossy paper. There's literally nothing I can do. This is the best that I can make it. I've been messing with lighting a lot. This is the best I can do. So let's get started. 1,000 years ago, in the city of Baghdad, those who could read Arabic had nearly the same access to the works of Aristotle and many others in classical science as readers do today. It was made possible by the Abbasid Caliphate, which, during its heyday in the 8th century, launched an ambitious translation initiative that gave Arab scholars entree to the great philosophical and scientific works of the Persians, Indians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and above all, the Greeks. The Islamic conquests had placed the ancient cultural centers of the Hellenistic world, from Syria to Egypt to Iran, in Arab hands, an expansion that fueled the Islamic Golden Age, which would endure until the Mongol invasions of the 13th century. Thanks to the efforts of the caliphs, cities such as Baghdad became centers of learning, where the study of mathematics, astronomy, optics, and medicine flourished. The Arab world not only preserved and disseminated this intellectual legacy, but also enriched it with new contributions, in turn laying the foundations for later scientific advances that would shape the future of the West. New mathematics. Among the directors of Baghdad's House of Wisdom, or Bait al-Hikmah, was the mathematician and astronomer al-Khwarizmi, who played a crucial role in spreading the decimal number system. His book concerning the Hindu art of reckoning, which survived only by way of its Latin translation, Algoritmi de Numerorum, introduced the West to the digits 1 through 9, as well as the concept of zero. With this came the accompanying concept of place value, in which each digit in a number has a value according to its position. For example, in the number 123, 1 represents hundreds, 2 represents tens, and 3 represents units. Al-Khwarizmi's work was fundamental for the transition from the Roman numbering system, which was both far more complex and limited for the task of calculating, to the Hindu-Arabic numeration system we use today. By making it easier to do calculations, Al-Khwarizmi's reforms represented a revolution in the world of mathematics, although they were not widely implemented until several centuries later. His book was responsible for the widespread, albeit false, impression that our current numbering system is of Arabic origin. It is, in fact, based on an Arabic translation of the numerical system of Brahmagupta, a 7th century Hindu mathematician and astronomer who was the system's true architect. In the 12th century, Latin translations used the Al-Khwarizmi for the numbering system he expounded, which became distorted in transmission to algorithm, in which turn became the basis for the word algorithm. The numbering system was not the only concept Al-Khwarizmi brought to Western mathematics. In another book, the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing, he laid the foundations of Arabic mathematics and became the founder of algebra, a word that derives from al-jabr, or completion, in Arabic. The use of letters to represent unknown numbers, for example, x squared plus 10x equals 39, provided methods for solving second-degree or quadratic equations much more easily than had been possible. Medicine and surgery. The medieval Arab world also saw scientific developments in medicine. Works such as the Canon of Medicine by the Persian scientist and philosopher Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna, were fundamental to the training of doctors in Europe for centuries. Meanwhile, other Arab physicians, such as the Andalusian Abu al-Qasim al-Zahrawi, known as Al-Bukasis in the Christian West, made significant contributions that were practical in their approach. In his medical and surgical encyclopedia, The Method of Medicine, al-Zahrawi described in great detail various diseases and their treatments, as well as surgical procedures. Al-Zahrawi offers many innovations: the surgical treatment of varicose veins, vascular ligation in arterial hemorrhages, tonsillectomy, the use of a catheter to drain urine from the bladder, the placing of patients in the lithotomy position for gynecological examination, and the use of bandages hardened with flour and egg white to stabilize broken bones. Al-Zahrawi also emphasized the importance of anatomical knowledge. In the introduction to the encyclopedia, he writes, "I saw an ignorant doctor who incised a scrofulous tumor in the neck of a woman. He severed some arteries in the neck, thus causing hemorrhage, which continued until she died in his hands." The work was conceived as a tool for medical students who were required to undergo a period of training before they could practice. In addition to his writing and teaching, al-Zahrawi was an innovator in the design of surgical instruments. He invented and described tools such as the cautery, a metal rod heated to red hot and used to cauterize tissue, the saw for cutting bones, forceps for dental extractions, and scissors for circumcision. These tools, designed to perform tasks with precision and efficiency, revolutionized surgical practice. The camera obscura. Ibn al-Haytham, also known as Alhazen, maybe Alhazen, I'm not sure, sorry. He was a 10th century Arab scholar considered one of the fathers of modern optics. His Optics is a comprehensive treatise on the nature of light, vision, and optical instruments, in which he accurately describes phenomena such as reflection, refraction, and the formation of images in the eye. In addition to being a great theorist, Al-Haytham was a tireless experimenter. He built optical instruments and designed experiments to test his hypotheses using a rigorous evidence-based approach. By observing how light, when filtered through a small aperture, would project inverted images onto the walls of a dark chamber, Al-Haytham discovered a fundamental principle of optics, the formation of images through light. This simple experiment provided a better understanding of how the human eye works and laid the foundation for the development of optical instruments such as cameras and telescopes. It also demonstrated that light travels in a straight line and that vision occurs when light from objects reaches the eye, refuting ancient theories that vision emanated from the eyes themselves. Never thought of it like that. How interesting. Cosmography and cartography. Astrolabes were among the most famous instruments of the medieval Arab world. Although their origin dates to the 6th century, the Arabs made great advances in their design. Celestial maps were created to calculate the positions of the stars and the sun, but their representations of the heavens were based on a geocentric model of the universe, with the Earth at the center and all other celestial bodies revolving around it. Astrolabes were widely used in the Islamic world because they made it possible to determine the Qibla, which is the direction of the Kaaba at Mecca, and calculate the times of daily prayers, which vary according to the positions of the sun and moon. Despite advances in astronomy, with the theories of Copernicus and Galileo, which displaced the Earth from the center of the universe, astrolabes continued to be used for centuries due to their practicality and accuracy. Although the compass was invented in China, it was in Al-Andalus in the 11th century where the first compass to incorporate a floating lodestone was created. This device, which relied on the Earth's natural magnetism to align the lodestone, allowed sailors to maintain a fixed course on the high seas, thereby facilitating maritime travel. The Arabs made other important advances in navigation. They introduced the triangular sail, which allowed them to take advantage of side winds and navigate in directions that were previously difficult to achieve. And they replaced the ship's side oars with a rudder at the stern, which gave ships greater control and maneuverability. This is my favorite part, and you'll see why at the end. The Banu Musa brothers. In the 9th century, at the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, the 3 Banu Musa brothers became master mechanics. Many of the inventions described in their Book of Ingenious Devices seemed straight out of a fairy tale. The book revolutionized the concept of mechanical engineering and anticipated various technological advances of later centuries. The Banu Musa inventions include automatons capable of performing tasks, such as serving drinks or playing musical instruments. The book also describes a wide variety of hydraulic devices, such as pumps and siphons, which could be used to move water and perform other tasks fundamental to the development of agriculture and industry in the Arab world. These inventions were not only a demonstration of the brothers' technical skill, but also showed how the engineering of the time was seeking to imitate and enhance human function. The sun sets on a golden age. Although some scholars argue that the Islamic Golden Age was already experiencing a decline, it is generally agreed that its definitive demise was by the sword of the Mongol hordes. In early 1258, when Baghdad was besieged and sacked, the House of Wisdom and the city's invaluable libraries were destroyed. So many books were thrown into the Tigris River, it was said, that the water ran black from ink. I need to show you this page first about the Banu Musa brothers. And I'll tell you a little bit more after. In the footsteps of the Banu Musa brothers, it says Ismail al-Jazari was a 13th century Arab engineer who worked at the service of the Artukid dynasty based in Diyarbakir, which is in today's southeastern Turkey. One of the Artukid rulers, Nasir al-Din Mahmud, commissioned al-Jazari in 1206 to compile the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices to explain and illustrate some of his creations. So here's some pictures from that book. The first one here is a model of a water pump. So we have an ox harnessed to an axle and circling around it, moving a horizontal gear, you can see here, whose teeth engage with those of a vertical gear wheel, which begins to turn. By way of the vertical wheel, a crank slides through a groove, right here, I guess, right here. I guess it goes this way. A groove on the crank handle of the water pump, which has a chamber. I guess this is the groove. Oh, this is the, okay, I see. This is the groove. It slides into the groove, into the water chamber at the bottom end. As the crank handle goes up and down with the movement of the gear wheel, it proceeds along a groove in the water pump. When the crank handle goes up, it raises the water pump until the reservoir reaches an angle that causes the water to descend through the hollow handle. When the crank handle goes down, so does the water pump, which is submerged in the channel of water again. Here's for ritual ablutions, which if you don't know is when you wash usually like your hands or your feet or even your face before a religious prayer or ritual or after. This mechanism was used to perform ritual ablution or wudu before prayer. A servant kneels beneath a water tank. There. When the water is released, it flows down the inside of a column, down this way, and through a conduit inside the automaton, reaches a jug he held in his right hand. Okay, when the water rises above a certain level, the jug tilts and the water falls to perform the ablution, right here. Just before the water falls, air displaced by the water in the jug escapes through a narrow opening, emitting a hissing sound that announces the water is about to fall. When all the water has fallen into the basin, a duck, which is right here, water's pouring here to where the duck is, tilts and pours it into a tank under the servant. This causes a float to rise. In doing so, it releases the servant's left arm, which moves forward, offering a towel and a comb. Pretty cool. And here's the elephant clock. This is the best one. This is all mechanical. This isn't a real person. This is a robot. It's an automaton, right? These aren't real things. They're all mechanical. Okay. The elephant carries a water tank. Floating in the tank is a container with a hole that fills with water and takes half an hour to sink to the bottom of the tank. As it sinks, the container pulls on a rope that connects it to a mechanism located in the tower. When the bowl reaches the bottom, the mechanism releases a ball that rolls out of the beak of a falcon and falls into the mouth of the snake. You see the snake there. The snake tilts its head forward while its tail rises right here, lifting the container back to the surface. As that process is underway, the elephant driver hits the elephant's head with a goad and a mallet, and bird whistles appear. Cuckoo clock. As the half hour passes, the bird at the top traces a circle, as does a scribe below, his reed pen marking the passing minutes. So, I always read these articles out loud to my brother-in-law just to practice all the words. Make sure I don't stumble over anything. And when we got to this, he was like losing his mind. He was like, this is the greatest invention I've ever heard of. Let's make one. We gotta have this. Then I looked it up and found places where they had actually built these. Like, I don't think they're functioning. I think they're just models. But there's one in a mall in Dubai, and it looks fantastic, and we're obsessed. We had to buy a new lawnmower, I think yesterday. So we went to the store to buy it. We're looking at the lawnmowers, and we were like, what if we had a bird? The bird pushes against the grass, and then a ball floats into a tank of water. We were coming up with our own Banu Musa brother inventions, and it was so much fun. And then we were like, where is this steampunk era? We don't want the Victorian steampunk era. We want the House of Wisdom steampunk era. We want to see this in like a movie or book series or something. Then over here is a contemporary replica of a safe for storing valuables designed by Al-Jazari, opened by combining a series of numbers. Looks like you have to turn to make it pop open. That's pretty cool. All right, let's see what else we've got. Orientation on land and sea. As astronomy made impressive advances, instruments such as the astrolabe and the compass became popular in the medieval Muslim world. It says from east to west, the compass. The compass, a magnetized needle that points to the Earth's magnetic north, is mentioned for the first time in a Chinese manuscript from 1117. Like other Chinese inventions, it was introduced throughout the Islamic world before finally reaching Europe. An instrument of special importance for Muslims, it can be used to determine the direction in which Mecca lies, or the Qibla, and therefore the direction believers must face while praying. So let's see, this is the first known diagram of a magnetic compass in the Islamic world by the Yemeni Sultan and astronomer Al-Ashraf Umar circa 1290, and this is at the National Library in Cairo. Here's a Qibla compass used to determine the direction of Mecca, and it includes a sundial, and it's from 1582 to 1583, and it's located at the British Museum in London. And here is a brass astrolabe made in Toledo by Ibrahim ibn Said al-Sali in 1067, measuring 9.5 inches in diameter. And this is at the National Archaeological Museum in Madrid. Let's read about the astrolabe. There's a picture of someone using it. This instrument takes at its reference points the horizon and the observer's meridian, the line that divides the sky into east and west. The image shows a mariner's astrolabe, which can be used to determine the latitude, or the distance from a given point to the equator, of a ship at sea by measuring the height of the sun, or a star. This is indicated by a movable ruler called an alidade. Over here is the flying machine of Ibn Firnas. Among the scholars of Al-Andalus, the figure of Abbas ibn Firnas stands out. He served 3 Umayyad emirs of Cordoba in Spain and died in 887. Ibn Firnas helped establish the mathematical and astronomical approaches that originated with al-Khwarizmi, algebra, notation based on place value, and astronomical calculations according to Indian tables. But he's also known to have built a planetarium admired by his contemporaries, as well as a clepsydra, or water clock that may have included automatons. He gave it to the emir so that he could check prayer times. However, Ibn Firnas is famous above all for his attempt to fly. He created a silk suit lined with feathers, built a pair of wings like those of a bird, and, wearing them both, launched himself into the air from a tower in Cordoba. He allegedly remained in the air and traveled some distance, but he failed in the landing, injuring his rear end, as he had not realized that birds use their tails when landing, and he had not made himself a tail, according to the Algerian historian al-Makari. It seems that Ibn Firnas did not flap his artificial wings with his arms, but rather launched himself from the tower and tried to glide, using an approach similar to that used later by 19th century German aviator Otto Lilienthal. It looks like he came up with hang gliders, huh? Pretty cool. There's a recreation of it here. The sculpture's on display in Dubai. In the city, what? This sculpture, what in the world? It says the sculpture's on display in the city of Dubai, National Library, Cairo. Well, Cairo is not Dubai, so it's in one of those places. Maybe it's in both. Maybe this is the one in Cairo and there's another on display in Dubai, probably where the elephant clock is. This is a diagram of that clepsydra explained the inner workings of the water clock designed by the Banu Musa brothers. Okay. I promise I can read. I promise. Isn't this gorgeous? This is, of course, in Al-Andalus in Cordoba. Well, it's not called Al-Andalus anymore. It's southern Spain, right? Andalusia. The mihrab of the Mosque Cathedral of Cordoba. For over 300 years, can you see? For over 300 years, under the Umayyad emirs and caliphs, Cordoba was the capital of Muslim Spain and the gateway for scientific and cultural innovations that would eventually reach the rest of Europe. I promise I can talk. It's just a gorgeous place. The arches are so iconic. Yeah, where's the Umayyad steampunk era? I want that so much. That would be so cool. With like this kind of, backdrop, but with all of the mechanical automatons and such. That would be so neat. Let's look at some surgical instruments. Al-Zarawi, also known as Al-Bukassis, was born in the royal city of Medina Azahara near Cordoba around 936. Tradition holds he was a physician to Caliph Abd al-Rahman III. The final treatise in his 30-volume compendium, The Method of Medicine, is devoted to surgery and contains drawings of more than 200 surgical instruments related to the procedures he describes in both general surgery, from the treatment of tumors to the use of suction cups, and his specialties, ophthalmology, dentistry, urology, obstetrics, and gynecology. So here we see some replicas, contemporary replicas. These aren't artifacts of the surgical instruments used by al-Zarawi based on his drawings contained in his work. You can see they're still very detailed and beautiful. They've got little drawings on them. I kind of don't want to know what this is for. This just looks like a needle, like a syringe, and then these are some surgical scissors. Yeah, I don't want to know what that's for. I don't want to know which part is what. It looks a little eerie. And right here we can see some scalpels and suction cups in a Latin translation of Al-Zurari's treatise on surgery. It's from the 14th century, and you can find this at the Algebra Museum in Montpellier. This says the first psychiatric institutions. Innovative medical practices abounded in the medieval Islamic world. They included the development of the hospital as an institution, known as a bimaristan, from the Persian bimar or sick, and inspired by the great hospital created by the Sasanian kings of Gondishapur. The first bimaristan was founded in 710 in Damascus by the Umayyad Caliph al-Walid I, and from the 9th century onward, the institutions multiplied. One particular innovation was the creation of hospitals to treat people deemed to be insane. The philologist al-Mubarrad had described visiting a hospital where patients were bound with shackles. Paroxysmal episodes were treated with force and whips. Evidence suggests that sometimes patients were treated more humanely. A 13th century account describes patients who displayed mania being treated with opium diluted in barley water. That would help some things. Regarding the duration of treatment, it is known that in Baghdad, magistrates visited patients monthly and released those who had been cured. They returned to their homes, where they continued to receive medical care. It says founded in 1354, the Argun Akamili Bimaristan in Aleppo, Syria, is one of the best preserved psychiatric hospitals. It looks like a fountain or well right here. Probably to wash up, I suppose, but so fascinating. There's a diagram of an eye for optics, anatomical drawing of a human eye by the Persian scholar Kamal al-Din al-Farisi. It is 1309 treatise on optics. Medieval Islam, land of innovation. The unstoppable spread of Islam toward the east took Muslim armies into territories controlled by the Tang dynasty. In 751, they defeated Chinese forces at the Battle of Talas in present-day Kyrgyzstan. The Abbasid Caliphate extended over more than 4 million square miles from Central Asia to the Iberian Peninsula. The Arabs assimilated innovations they encountered in that vast area, becoming the driving force behind a technological and cultural revolution that would eventually reach Europe. Let's look what this is. It's an alembic. Of Greek origin and used in Byzantium, the alembic was refined by the Arabs. The device was essential for distilling liquids, perfumes, and medicines through an evaporation and subsequent condensation process. Its name comes from the Arabic ambik, a word derived from the Greek ambiks. You can see I'm doing it here, distilling in this big alembic, I suppose. And then here's one, still from the 10th to 12th centuries. It's one of the oldest in existence. This is at the Science Museum in London. Paper. In the 2nd century CE, paper was invented in China and arrived in the Islamic world via Chinese prisoners taken to Samarkand in 751. In 794, a paper mill was set up in Baghdad, followed by another in Damascus. Paper production expanded throughout North Africa, and from there it reached Europe via the Iberian Peninsula. Here it shows someone, reading a Quran that's been written on paper. This is from the late 11th to 12th century. Oh no, this is the Quran written on paper from the 11th to 12th century. This is at the Met in New York. This is a detail of a miniature from 1827 showing a philosopher writing on paper. That makes more sense. This is at the Beyazid State Library and Suleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. Chess. Its origins lie in an Indian game called Chaturanga, which arrived in Persia as Shatranj. The Arab occupation of Persia would popularize the game throughout the Islamic realm. It eventually reached the Western Christian world via Al-Andalus, which is in today's Spain. You can see some Arabs playing chess. This is a miniature from the Book of Chess, Dice, and Tables by Alfonso X the Wise. This is at the monastery of El Escorial. And here's the windmill. The first reference to windmills dates to 644 in Persia. Persian mills had a vertical axis. With the Arab conquest, the design proliferated throughout the Middle East. The oldest mention of windmills in the Islamic world appears in the Book of Ingenious Devices, written in the 9th century by the 3 Banu Musa brothers. These vertical axis mills in Nashdafan, Iran, is considered the world's oldest and are still in operation. Isn't that amazing? Look at them. That's incredible. World's oldest windmills. Arabic numbers from India to the world. It was Al-Khwarizmi who in the 9th century promoted the Indian decimal-based number system, including a positional notation for 0 derived from Sanskrit. The Arabic word for 0 is sifr, which means empty, which gave rise to the word cipher and the word for digit in several European languages, such as the French chiffre. Right up here we have a little map. Here's India. It says the Hindu mathematician and astronomer Brahmagupta was the true architect of the decimal system in the 7th century. Traveled here through Asia, just Baghdad, heading into the Middle East and North Africa. Trade and pilgrimages encouraged the spread of the decimal system. Then up here into Europe, it says intellectuals spread scientific advances adopted from the Arabs. The Codex Vigilanus, compiled by monks in 976, contains this representation of Arabic numerals without 0, the first such record in the West. They are written from right to left and likely copied from an Arabic manuscript, and this is also the library of El Escorial in Spain. You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Look at that. So here is the evolution of our numbers, and it's highlighting the 5s here. So let's take a look at the various number 5s through time. Here's the Indian script. The numerical system we use today has its origins in India and spread through the Arab world, starting in the 9th century in this more delicate form. Looks like it goes, or maybe like that. Indian numerals. The Arab copyists modified and rotated the figures, making them easier to replicate. Unlike the Indians, they wrote from right to left. Okay, so the Indians would have done that, but Arab, they write in the right. So they just turned it, I guess. I see it. Indians and Arabs. The evolution we see here affects only Western Arabic numerals. Those used from Egypt to Iraq are Eastern Arabic numerals, which take different forms. It's like it goes like that, I'm guessing. Gobar numerals. In Arabic, gobar means dust, and the numbers were named for the dust they left behind when calculations were made on a slate. That's cute. In the Maghreb, the shape of the numbers used in this North Africa region spread throughout Europe via Al-Andalus, the portion of the Iberian Peninsula under Muslim rule. Wait, there we go. Okay, and our current numbers. Between the 13th and 15th centuries, the shape of numbers in Europe became fixed, helped, albeit unintentionally, by Gutenberg. Yeah, not quite the same shape, but the same motion, huh? Almost. It's got that curve. How interesting. Very, very cool. The legacy of the Persians. The Greek knowledge compiled in Baghdad came from territories that centuries earlier had been ruled by Hellenistic kings, successors of Alexander the Great. The Syriac language, the language of the Christians of the East, and also the secondary language of the Byzantine Empire after Greek, was fundamental to the dissemination of this knowledge. Among the Eastern Christians were the Nestorians, whom the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, defender of Christian orthodoxy, had deemed heretics and expelled from his territory. Later, in 529, Justinian banned Greek philosophy and closed the Academy of Athens, founded by Plato. Meanwhile, the exiled Nestorian and Greek scholars were welcomed by the Persian king Khosrow I in his brilliant academy in Gondishapur, where Syriac was the language of science. When the Arabs conquered Persia in 637, this intellectual capital fell into their hands. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad was modeled on the academy in nearby Gondishapur, which is in today's Iran. And there, with the help of Nestorian scholars, numerous scientific and philosophical works were translated into Arabic. Here's the Khosrow cup. Formerly called the Cup of Solomon, it depicts a Sasanian king in the center, and it's from the 6th century. This is in the National Library in Paris. I guess it's a cup. I guess we're looking down from the top. A doctor and his audience. A doctor treats a patient under the watchful gaze of a large crowd of students. That is a large crowd of students. My goodness, poor patient. Looks like he's operating on his back. This is a miniature from the Maqamat of Al-Hariri, and this is also at the National Library of Paris. Here's what Baghdad used to look like, and there's the House of Wisdom. Created in 762 as the capital of the new Abbasid dynasty, which in 750 had overthrown the Umayyads of Damascus, Baghdad was home to the Bayt al-Hikmah, or House of Wisdom, founded by Caliph al-Ma'mun, who reigned from 813 to 833. This academy and library promoted the translation of the scientific and philosophical legacy of antiquity, the Greek, Persian, and Syriac worlds. Translations covered the fields of medicine, such as Galen, Hippocrates, and Pedanius Dioscorides, law, astronomy, and other sciences by Ptolemy, Euclid, and Archimedes. Iranian, Arab, Nestorian, Hindu, and Sabaean scholars addressed scientific, religious, and philological issues, devoted themselves to the observation of nature, and sought material achievements such as the invention of instruments for observation and experimentation, and the creation of astronomical tables. It was in this context that algebra and a new science of optics emerged. From the 8th century onward, the manufacture of paper made it easier to disseminate knowledge, and libraries were developed. The science and philosophy treasured and renewed by Islam spread from Baghdad to Europe via Spain, Sicily, and southern Italy. Here's a depiction of the Great Library of Basra. It's a miniature from the Maqamat of Al-Hariri, which we already saw in the other page with the operation audience there. The original site of Baghdad, located on the Tigris River, featured a circular layout about 2 miles in diameter, with the Caliph's palace and the Great Mosque at its center. Okay, that makes more sense. I wonder if... I don't know which one's the House of Wisdom then. Maybe it'll say here. It was surrounded by a triple enclosure of concentric walls with 4 gates facing the trade routes to allies, Khorasan in Iran, cities in Syria, and Basra and Kufa in Iraq. The original city plan is illustrated here. Gorgeous, gorgeous. So sad that it was all destroyed. That's so devastating. Here's a statue of Al-Khwarizmi. This is in Khiva in Uzbekistan, where he may have been born. And our last picture here says, studying the heavens. Astronomers depicted in a 16th century Ottoman miniature are believed to be members of scientist Taqi al-Din's team from the Istanbul University Library. That's where it's located. Very cool. Look at all these astronomers working so hard. This one's like, I've got the globe. We've got this set up for telescopes. And so have I. Do you need this? Yes, I do, please. I'll hand you this. I'll trade you this for that book. Okay. It says below right, a 14th century astrolabe quadrant would have been used to calculate the height of celestial bodies, and this is in the British Museum. What a fascinating article, right? Isn't that so neat? I guarantee you learned something. I sure did. I knew about the algebra and the decimals and astrolabes, but I learned a whole bunch of stuff. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you would like to pick future History Magazine articles, remember you just have to click that join button or the first link in the description box down below. I'd love to have you. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Thinking to click, if you had an elephant that carried on its back a bird, that when the water rose through the trunk, it would tip the bird to the join button, and a secondary bird would hit the like button once it tips. But anyway, we've been doing that all day. It's so funny. Good night.